Okay, so tell us about the class and what are you excited for beyond JR? Careful now with that microphone. There are people here recording.
Yeah. A little bit of everything. I think of Shea Weber. Rhett, you played against this man. He just typifies what it was to be a good, clean, mostly clean, physical presence out there who had the bone-crushing slap shot. Ultimate leader is probably used too much. It sounds cliche, but it also feels appropriate when I think of Shea Weber. So I look forward to seeing him go in. Pavel Datsyuk, man, I can't imagine again what it was like to play against him.
Not fun.
I can imagine the deception. And I always love the comparisons of players who are now in the national. Oh, it reminds me, like the most recent one, and several hockey people have made this, not media people, of Mitch Marner to Pavel Datsyuk. And I'm like, okay, I get it. He's shifty and, he's quick and he's got great intelligence and creativity and all that. There's only one Pavel Datsyuk. There's just one. Then beyond that, we talked a little bit about JR. For me, it's long overdue. I think he's aptly deserving of attention in the Hall of Fame. You look at the ladies going in, Natalie Darwitz, Chrissy Wendell-Poole. Chrissy Wendell-Poole, as Ray Ferraro talked about this week, just gave up a career because she wanted to start a family. This is a woman with a decorated playing resume, so that's nice. And then you've got the two builders. So you've got Colin Campbell, who's been involved at every level of hockey in the National Hockey League forever. And then you've got David Poile, who, again, he's one of the true gentlemen of the sport. So because of TV, so you can blame us, because of TV, there's a short window. It's a 5-minute maximum that each of the inductees have to just thank everybody and acknowledge some of the great points in their career. Have you guys ever had a conversation with Colin Campbell? There's zero chance he's getting that in 5 minutes. And likewise, David Poile, who it might take him 5 minutes to just acknowledge the principal people in his life around hockey. So anyway, it's a real good class, and I am looking forward to it.
Rhett, give us a Datsyuk anecdote. You kind of you made the joke. Not fun. The deception was through the roof and really – it felt like keep away, didn't it?
It did feel like keep away. And you got to remember at the start of his career, he was very much criticized for being soft and not caring and not engaging. And then all of a sudden it's like, what are you talking about? This guy is one of the best of the best of the best. I always loved his shootout goals where he just did the flip over the goalie into the net. So, every time I played against him, I made sure I changed real fast and got off the ice.
How about this one, fellas? So I remember years ago, Braden Shen was going into his first year, his rookie year in the National Hockey League. So that's how long ago this was. For some reason, I got invited to Las Vegas as part of a tourism boondoggle. And I went there with Brent Wallace, who at the time was with TSN. And so it was, I got to think who we got invited to a Cirque du Soleil show and then backstage. So it was Pavel Datsyuk, Braden Shen, and somebody else. I can't recall. I couldn't believe how good Datsyuk's English was at the time, because every media availability, every scrum that I'd ever been in around Pavel Datsyuk, he could barely speak English. Right? But then all of a sudden, you get him away from the prying eyes of media, and he's behind the scenes, and he's having a full conversation in English with one of the athletes at Cirque du Soleil. And I'm like, all right, I'm on to you, Pavel. I've got it. But he still plays that card.
That was the classic Ichiro Suzuki thing. He'd always be like, no English. And then you'd see him when the media wasn't around, and he's just like, I may as well be like reading English literature. Like the guy was absolutely fluent, no sweat. Just didn't want to do the media, which probably a good PR move.
Yeah.
Hey, look who's in the comments here. We got a question. Now, I know you're covering the Hall of Fame game. What about the Hall of Fame old timers game? Here's Kami weighing in. Dregs, you got a horse here? What do you got?
I don't even know who's playing. Is Mike playing?
I was just as if he's asking.
Okay.
I'm curious who's coaching, because there's a certain candidate that would make that very entertaining.
Oh boy! Hey, by the way, let's get Tommy going here. You see, there was a Mike Babcock sighting recently.
No,
it was at
tell
the
us about it.
Laval Rocket game, the American League game. Now, in fairness, doesn't sound like he's working for anybody or doing anything. I think he was there as part of McGill alumni, and they had an event, so he just went over and watched the game. But no, Mike Babcock will not be anywhere near that Old Timers game.
Tommy's offended. You've lost your insider status. You don't know the Old Timers games rosters. You haven't memorized them.
I have no idea. I have no idea who's playing.
Yeah.
No.
I feel like we need Tommy to bring him in as an insider, but it can't be anything like current NHL. It's going to be like who's on the next U.S. Ryder Cup team, or like top 10 golf courses in Scottsdale. This guy's got to figure it out.
I'll tell you what, he better hope that Wendell isn't playing, Wendell Clark. I saw Wendell late in the summer at the Maple Leafs charity golf tournament.
Yeah.
I mean, he had dropped maybe 20 lbs, maybe a little bit more, chiseled. I mean, he literally looks like that wrister could get pulled out of the mothballs and find its way home in the National Hockey League. So let's see. If Wendell's playing, how about a little showdown, center ice, old school, Mike Commodore and Wendell Clark. See how that turns out.
Yeah, Mike has the reach, but I don't know. I like Wendell there for some reason. You mentioned David Poile. He was a architect of the franchise here in Calgary we followed back to the early days in Atlanta, but more famous for his incredibly long and successful tenure with the Nashville Predators. He stepped aside. Barry Trotz is now the architect. What is Barry Trotz's demeanor, and what are the texts like he's getting these days? Another loss last night for the Preds.
Yeah, everybody's throwing him a life preserver, right? Every NHL general manager, hey, we have the perfect fit. We can help you out. It's going to cost one of your 3 first-round draft picks and one of your top prospects, but we've got the answer for you. I talked to Barry before Wednesday's game against Washington, and that was after he had done Nashville radio, where he dropped the R word, the rebuild word. Right. And, you know, in fairness to Barry, it was misinterpreted. That's not what he meant. Like when you think traditional rebuild, you're thinking, okay, you're tearing it down, you're taking it to the wood, and you're drafting, developing, and years and years and years of pain and suffering. It's not what he meant. He meant maybe he has to investigate whether they need help kind of in the middle part of their lineup. So they bring in Brady Shea. He replaces McDonough. They bring in Stamkos, and they bring in John Marchessault. And his hope was that those 3 guys, given their experience, would be able to hold down the fort. You know, they could lean on him, they being Andrew Burnett and the rest of the team, while some of the younger guys earned the experience. And maybe by the time you get to the playoffs, you know, some of these younger guys are ready to take it up a notch. Well, the problem is they're probably not getting to the playoffs. Well, they're not the way they're playing right now. So when he said rebuild, what he meant was, you know, I might have to dangle one of those first-round picks. It's got 2 seconds. They have a glut of good young prospects coming and good young NHL players. Maybe I've got to package something and make another bigger trade or a bigger move and get in some help. So we'll see how that plays out. It's still relatively early. He probably isn't going to be able to do that until closer to the midway point of the regular season, but that's what he meant when he used the rebuild word.
So what are they shopping for? Second line center? Is it the middle?
But yeah, that's in a perfect world, that's what they would add. You know, something with a little bit of creative punch there. But, you know, like who's given up a 2 center with any level of hockey smarts or creativity? Nobody, not at this point. And that's the frustration. Like there's no way that Barry Trotz and Andrew Burnett expected that they would be in the mud the way that they are right now. They just didn't. And Rhett, you made the point a couple of weeks ago. You thought that, you know, he pulled the Louisville off his shoulder way too early. You know, swung for the fence with Stamkos and Marchessault, and the group isn't ready. And you're 100% right. And now the general manager can see that. Unfortunately, he's the guy who did it, and everybody's calling for Andrew Burnett. Well, that's grossly unfair.
Don't do that.
Yeah. No. I mean, Andrew Burnett was a hell of a coach we're talking to him in the coach of the year category, right? You know, and you look at the year Ryan O'Reilly had last year. Terrific. This year, I mean, he called himself out the other night and said he doesn't think he's played a worse game in terms of his inability to generate anything. Well, there's a guy that's been there, done that. He's seen it all at the NHL level. So I just, again, I believe, based on the conversation I had with Barry, that he's going to try and bring in some help before he does any dismantling, coaching or otherwise.
Okay, Rhett, I want you to we saw the Bruins last night. Flames were in Boston. Another wildly entertaining game on the road for the Flames. They erased a deficit in Montreal, winning overtime with Coronado starring. Last night, they erased a 2-goal deficit with Kadri and Sharangovich playing big roles. Dustin Wolf played in both of them. He's looking all the part of a starter.
Good. Yeah.
I think this Flames team, we would all be on the same page. They've surprised us. They've impressed us. Tip of the cap to the veterans, the coach, the young players. What are we seeing on the other side of the ice? Because Boston, all the hallmarks that we've seen over the last half decade or decade haven't been there. They don't have anything that they seem to be great at. They're not great on special teams. They don't score a lot. They haven't been getting great goaltending. Yeah. They don't look like they're terribly well structured. Rhett, maybe you start with what you maybe know or what you're asking questions about with Boston, and then Dregs will get to you.
Yeah.
Well, I just you've got a bunch of guys, again, the team that brought in guys that paid a lot of money, and you expect Boston, because of the history and the way they've played over the last decade or so, that they're going to be upper echelon.
Yeah.
And have they accepted that maybe they aren't anymore? I mean, there's all that talk about the coaching too. And I have no idea, because how do you go from one of the best records or the best record ever 2 years ago to not liking the coach and making these changes? I guess one of the questions I would have is, did they sour things in the offseason with the treatment of some of the players, or vice versa? Where some of the guys like Marchand going, listen, I've played here for cheap because I want to play on a good team, and now you're going to take these guys to the cleaners? Did it change the dynamics in the room? That's what I can't.
It could have. I mean, there's no doubt that Jeremy Swayman negotiation or lack thereof was a distraction, and it negatively influenced the group coming out of training camp and coming out of the preseason. I just don't think the Bruins are good enough. They've got a handful of good players. I mean, David Pastrnak is elite. We know that. He's proven that. Brad Marchand scores the overtime winner last night. Good second effort there, but he's coming off 3 surgeries, and he's an older player. Like, he's clearly in the back nine of his career. But we just talked about Nashville wanting a potentially a second line center. Look up the middle of the ice in Boston. And so you see Pavel Zacha, you see Lindholm, who actually I thought was pretty good last night, right? Like, Lindholm isn't that edge of the seat type of centerman, right? He's not. He's a good two-way center. You've got Charlie Coyle. So those are your 3 guys up the middle. Well, the one thing that they seem to lack is exactly what we talked about, creativity. There's nobody there with that sort of buzz or excitement. They've got Justin Brazeau playing top 6 right wing. Yeah. I mean, this guy, and I like him. I mean, he's an enormous guy. I can appreciate how you look at him and you see a project. Not that long ago, he couldn't play for the Toronto Marlies. Now he's in your top 6 in the National Hockey League with the Boston Bruins beside Brad Marchand and Lindholm. So I feel the frustration of Jim Montgomery. People are criticizing Jim because of how often he turns a blender on. I mean, when they were winning games that they shouldn't have won last year early on, he did the same thing. A line would score, and the next time the 2 forwards are out, they'd have a different winger on the other side. That's just the MO of Jim Montgomery. So it might just come down to the Boston Bruins time without Bergeron, without Krejci, without some of the other pieces just catching up to them. And they've got some good young talent. I'm drawn to Matthew Potter watching that kid play. I think he's going to be a really good NHL player, but they need that cushion. They need help to get them through.
Last night, bit of a hit that is going to get a second viewing from the Department of Player Safety, as we saw Tanner Jeannot, a guy that plays his game on the edge. Yeah. Probably wish he could take this one back. There's Brock Besser, who is one of the great goal scorers on the Canucks. Want you both to react to it. Rhett, we showed you it once before the show, and now you see it another couple times. What's your first reaction before we get to Dregs?
Well, I guess my first reaction is you don't need to.
Yeah.
It feels like one of those ones where it's pretty clear that the league has told everybody, don't do it. Yeah. We don't want to see it. The guys don't need to be. we get hypocritical about it because we want hard-nosed hockey and physical hockey, but to me, that one's a bit of a cheap shot.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. And he had opportunity because of distance traveled. If you feel like you've got to complete that hit, he could have changed it, right? He could have gone shoulder on shoulder, and he doesn't. Yeah, anything. Full body, however they want to describe it inside the Department of Player Safety, the opportunity for Jeannot to complete that hit in a better fashion was there. So now you start looking at some of the little details that go into it. Does he drive the shoulder up? You know, it appears in the 5 times I've looked at it that there's the point of contact is head. That doesn't always matter, but in this case, it probably will. To me, that's a line cross, and I'd be surprised if he isn't suspended. However, then you flip it again, and I wouldn't say that Besser was admiring a pass or making the play, but when you're drifting through the neutral zone like that, you're allowed to be hit there, right? But it does come from the blind side, and there were other paths, and the contact could have been different. So I think it's probably suspendable.
Yeah, this is one of the many I would file into totally normal hit in the mid-90s, and one that the league and the players aren't okay with now. A, the players not expecting it, and B, what are you accomplishing here? It's just unnecessary, right? You said it. Like, what's the point here?
Right. Well, and Drake's made a good point too. If you can finish that, Chad,
do better. Yeah,
you
finish it low.
Why are you going to where are you going with that contact? Like,
so if I see 2 games, you go over under or just right?
Yeah, 2-3 maybe.
Okay, Rhett,
I always hate guessing at the numbers.
I know,
because it's
spin
so
the wheel.
subjective. Yeah.
We always joke about it. Spin the wheel of justice, like tick, 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 10, 5, 3, 2, 1. Oh, it's 2. There you go. But yeah, I mean, when you slow things down and there's all these different comps, I can find comparables that didn't get suspended. You can go find some more than 2, but it just feels like that safe spot for the Department of Player Safety is a couple games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Kings have been good. Anyone else that's caught your eye surprisingly out of the gates? Washington has been stunning. I mean, not just the results, smoke and mirrors, but like their underlying metrics are phenomenal.
Give me your take. Give me your take on Buffalo too. So we play them tomorrow, and I do not know what to make. I said I don't think they're going to playoff team. I felt, and they've kind of climbed out of a bit of a hole. But where are they at in your opinion?
Well, I mean, they're closer to where I thought they'd be. And I mean, they're not going to roll over teams like they have in the last couple. I don't think that that's reality, but they were better or are better than what they played up to, in the previous games of the regular season, to be fair. And because of that, it conjured up all sorts of rumor and speculation, around that group and what might come. There's a reason why Kevin Adams wanted to bring Lindy Ruff back. And there's familiarity there, obviously, with the Buffalo Sabres. But I think that he also felt like they needed somebody who's going to stabilize. And just as importantly, make sure that young defense is taught the right way, how to defend and do it on a consistent basis. Because up until now, they weren't seeing that from some of their young D. The goaltending in Buffalo has been a question mark for the last few years. Maybe it's less so now. But in fairness to that group, on paper, I thought that they'd be better than they were. So maybe the last couple of games is an indication that they're finding the right way and they're learning how to get the job done here.
Yeah, they're young. We like a lot of the talent.
Yeah.
And you hope they don't panic. I feel like they've done this too many times to do it again, but this is not the time to go overreact and trade a young star who's going to be better elsewhere. We've seen that a bit with Buffalo. And Washington, finally. Yeah, Washington, and then we'll get you out of here.
Washington is a surprise for a number of different reasons, right? But, we had Spencer Carberry on the podcast recently, and he talked about the benefits of him having coached some of their younger guys like Protas, McMichael's another one, right? Like this kid has just blossomed this year, and it's almost the perfect recipe for what they needed, based on what they've got in the elder statesmen. Of course, you think of Ovechkin. Tom Wilson is still at times dominant player, but maybe not the offensive threat that he used to be. Hold on a sec.
Yeah, you're good.
So all that combined with good goaltending, I mean, I still think they're going to come back to the pack a little bit, but man, they've been good to this point. Surprising for me, for sure. I still think that they're going to have to scrape and claw like they did last year as the playoffs draw closer in the second half. But, the other thing that you're hearing from inside that dressing room is how tight that group is. And you kind of see it in the pregame. You see they're mucking around and they're having fun, and it's Ovechkin with the old guys and all of that kind of stuff. But maybe that does matter. When you've got that connectivity in the room and off the ice, and guys want to come to the rink because it's fun and you're winning games, which makes it that much more fun. I mean, maybe they do. And guys, I think we're also learning Spencer Carberry is a hell of a coach.
Yeah,
he really is. So they might have something going there.
No question. Dregs, enjoy Hall of Fame weekend. You're our Hall of Famer. We love you. Thanks for coming on weekly. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Get a glass of water and get going on those old-timer rosters.
Always something going on. All right, boys. Have a good weekend.
Hey, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out more of our content right here on the Flames Nation YouTube page. We had a bunch of great long-form interviews. You can check out some videos we've done as well outside of the studio. And, of course, if you want more writing or merchandise stuff, flamesnation.ca or nationgear.ca. Appreciate you watching.